Hello, my name is Becca. My English 11 class has spent a major portion of the year reading William Shakespeare's masterpiece, Macbeth. I'll be diving into the surface layer of Shakespeare's family and work life. Then I will be talking about a significant passage from Shakespeare's play, Macbeth. Hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you will not only see Shakespeare's work in a new way, but have an overall better understanding of his life and the era in which he lived. William Shakespeare was born on April 23rd and was baptized 3 days after on April 26th in 1564. He was born to a glovemaker, tanner, and wool dealer known as John. Shakespeare's mother, Mary Arden, gave birth to 8 children. Only 5 survived. William was the eldest of 4 boys. He only had one living sister, Joan. Shakespeare supposedly began at Stratford Junior School until he progressed into the King's New School. Up until the age of 14 or 15, he was studying Latin until he left school. In 1582, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway when he was only 18 and she was 26. Their first child was a girl named Susanna. She was born in May of 1583. In February of 1585, Anne and William's twins were christened. After the christening of his children for the next 7 years, there was no historical record of his life. This time was known as his lost years. In 1592, the next day recorded in which Shakespeare was found working in poetic fields in London. Between the years of 1950 and 1952, his first 3 plays were performed: Henry VI series, Richard III, The Comedy of Errors. The year of 1953, the Globe was shut down because of the plague. By 1954, Shakespeare had wrote Venus and Adonis, The Rape of Lucifer, The Taming of the Shrew, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, and Love's Labour's Lost. During this year, Shakespeare wrote many sonnets. As well, 154 of his sonnets have survived to this day. By 1594, Shakespeare had become a shareholder in the Lord Chamberlain's Men. He remained a member throughout the rest of his career. They did plays often for Queen Elizabeth I. In 1595, Shakespeare wrote Richard II, Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer's Night's Dream, and Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare then purchased a house with his new success in Stratford in 1597. In 1599, the Chamberlain of Men established the Globe Theatre. In 1603, King James issued a royal license to Shakespeare and his players, calling them the King's Men. During King James's time, Shakespeare wrote many plays about politics, including King Lear, Antony and Cleopatra, and Macbeth. Shakespeare passed away on April 23, 1616. The significant passage I chose to write about for Macbeth is, "Whence is that knocking? How is it with me when every noise appalls me? What hands are here? Ha! They pluck out mine eyes. Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hands? No, this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red." Macbeth says this in Act 2, Scene 2. He's speaking to himself after he had just murdered Duncan. He left with an obvious feeling of guilt and a paranormal suspicion around the event. He begins his phrase with an angry tone, as if the knock on the door is meant to upset him, as if the knock was planned to happen at this exact moment. The knocking was done by Macduff, who eventually kills Macbeth. The knocking is looked at as foreshadowing of Macbeth's future, that Macduff finally catches Macbeth in the act like Macbeth felt he was doing by knocking on the door after the murder of Duncan. This passage is the gateway to the theme of guilt throughout the whole play. He questions the fact that any small disturbance feels to be targeting him and begins to believe it will never go away. He looks at his stained hands and asks if the amount of blood is equal to what might have been there if he had plucked his own eyes out. Macbeth continuously stresses the fact that he believes his hands will never come clean of Duncan's blood, forcing Macbeth to feel a tremendous amount of guilt in the rest of the play. I chose this passage because I believe it is the most important passage in the entire play. It shows that Macbeth can feel tremendous guilt even after he does what he wants. Thank you for listening. That was my presentation on Shakespeare's Macbeth.